Welcome back to the studio. We're ready to start painting the petals of our poinsettia. As I mentioned, I'm planning to do mine as a pink poinsettia, so let's jump in and have some fun painting. I've grabbed just a little bit of a smaller filbert here. This is a size 6. I think that this is where I'm going to start for painting our poinsettia petals. And I'm going to start with a sort of a mid-tone pink. My idea here is to set in a base of a mid color so that I can come back in with some lighter pinks, and having that base of the darker pink will begin to build in some of the veining of our petals that we want to have. So I'm going to grab Quinacridone Magenta, the Phthalo Red Light, some of the titanium white. This brush is very wiggly. I do not take care of my brushes at all. Um, I like to just paint, I like to not have to be finicky about my brushes. So I'm continuing to kind of mix down and make sure I don't want this to be too too dark so that I have to fight how dark it is later. I'm actually going to change the brush here. I don't know if you can see it as I paint, but the ferrule of this brush is just very, very wiggly. I might see if I can fix it by adding in a little bit of glue or something. If anybody knows how to fix a wiggly ferrule, please let me know. Just gonna get this brush wet. Looks like this brush might need some hand sanitizer. I don't know if you guys know that trick, but if you have a brush that dries a little bit, gets a little bit too much dried paint on it, you can use hand sanitizer, and the alcohol in the hand sanitizer will clean that paint out. Let's see. I want I want to be able to add just a little bit of green into this too, in order to tone the pink a little bit. So I just dipped into the phthalo blue and a little bit of the Hansa yellow opaque. And I'll just bring that in. You can see it kind of grays the pink a little bit. Let's see how that looks. I kind of like that. It's almost like it almost gives it a little bit of a purple tint, which is fun. I think I want it just a little bit darker down in here, where just this little sliver really recesses into the plant a little bit. And as I've mentioned a lot in this class already, you don't have to be particular here. I'm um, allowing I'm just painting just that section just so I can see where these petals are. If you get a little bit onto the other petals, it's no problem. Just let it happen. I kind of like that pink that I have, and actually I'm going to go ahead and add that to our color mix worksheet so that I can remember it. So I just touched into just a little bit more of the titanium white there. just to vary the color a little bit. And I think that that's good enough for this first go through. Let's go ahead and work on this big petal here. And we have some decisions that we can make. I'm going to have this little petal, this small teardrop shape, come in front. So I want this petal to go back behind. I'm going to put out a tiny bit more of the phthalo blue. I like to darken the pinks with a little bit of the phthalo. You can also darken with a little bit of the burnt sienna, which we still have out here. I probably should have put out a little bit more titanium white, but we'll see how it goes here. I'm gonna step off to the side. The phthalo, it always surprises me how how powerful the phthalo it really is. I'm gonna dip into a little bit of the burnt sienna too, just to soften that. I really like what the burnt sienna just did there. That was a good addition to sort of mute that blue a little bit. It's just a little purpler. It's a little bit more purple than I really want it. So I'm just going to dip into a little bit more of the Pyrrole Red, which just brightens it a little bit. Then I'm going to add some titanium white and just begin to vary the colors a little bit. Not details here, just our base, just enough variation so that our eye can begin to pick out the petal shape coming together. As a general rule, follow the veining of the leaves. It's no problem to run your brush like I just did along the edge. You just want to come back in and make sure that your brush strokes that go over the top of that um, follow the shape a little bit better. I just dipped into a little bit more of the titanium white. What I'm trying to do here really is just to cover those engraved lines. You could see there just a little bit of the color that was in my brush coming out. Let those things happen. Don't panic if you see a little bit of a green or a little bit more of the phthalo coming out. So that was a little bit of the lighter color. You saw me dip back in and grab a little bit of that darker version. This is why having all of those variations on your palette really is really nice. I don't know if you can see, but because of this mixture, there's a little bit of a more of a purple haze happening down here, and I really like it. I'm going to let it happen. I'm going to let that one dry a little bit. I'm going to come in and do this little top one that we were just talking about before. Just wiped my brush out a little bit. I could see just a little bit too much paint being pushed around by my brush. So by just wiping it really quick, I can get some of that paint out of my brush. I'm gonna add just a little bit of the titanium white. I just basically dipped into pure titanium white. Um, Again, just to give my eye a little bit to work with there. The back of this petal does go underneath of this one. So let's go ahead and just darken that area a little bit. Just taking my time with the mixture, just trying to get a color that's just a little bit deeper back there. I think while I have it, I'm going to put it underneath of this petal too. Maybe tap into this area again. And then I'll wipe out the brush and then just come back in and just run the mostly clean brush along the edge. I could feel it pulling a little bit, so I'll just dip into the airbrush medium just to loosen it a little bit. And now I'll come back into the lighter color and just go over the top of it, just building the shape of those petals a little bit. So I just did that a little bit of the lighter pink, mostly clean brush, a little bit of airbrush medium. Just gonna run along some of those edges. And like I mentioned before, my paint is drying really quickly. So don't wait too long. If you do want to come back in and soften anything, it's better to do it pretty quickly. However, don't panic because we can always let it dry and come back in again. So I am going to go ahead and fast forward from here. I'm going to finish painting in just the basing in of the petals. And then when we come back together again, we will put some of the lighter highlights on each one of these petals. So I hope you enjoyed watching that rest of the petals kind of come together. Um, it really is a process of going back and forth between the darks and the lights, and do that as many times as you need to. The important thing at this stage is don't build up any texture in your paint at this point. So keep the paint fairly spread out, fairly thin. When we come back in for the final highlights and the final details, that's where we'll make a little bit more texture with our paint. It's not that we're looking for texture to show up, but allowing the paint to just be a little bit thicker. So the petals are a little bit rough here, but this is exactly the base that I need to be able to come back in and build those final highlights. And it's important at this stage to really just pause and let it dry, and then we'll come back in with the final details. I'm trying to think what else I wanted to mention. I know there was something else. I was going to say that again, my paints are drying incredibly fast, kind of shockingly fast, really. Um, but I will say that I went ahead and invested in a bigger container of the titanium white. I know you will use that much more than any other color. And like I mentioned before, also the Hansa Yellow Opaque, those two colors are just, you just use more of them. So let's go ahead and start to do the middle, the poinsettia flower part. And I just mixed just a light green color. Um, we're going to just use a couple of variations of this. So the Hansa Yellow Opaque, Hansa Yellow Opaque, Phthalo Blue. I don't know why words have been so hard today. And again, just my little round brush, and I'm just going to dot in some of this lighter green. I don't have to be really specific here, just adding in some variations of color in the centers. Now I'll come back in, get a little bit of a darker green. So I'm just pulling just a little bit more of that blue in. I'll just tap that around, just loosely, just for the variation. And I can even take that into that dark area that we set in before. I'm seeing a really dark area here that I missed before. I might go ahead and just really quickly with some Quinacridone Magenta, Phthalo Blue, a little bit of the Burnt Sienna if I still have any that's wet, just for a dark color to fill in this little opening back here. I'll go ahead and clean my brush out a little bit just by dipping it in the airbrush medium and blotting it on my towel. And then I'll come back in and just pick up some just straight Hansa Yellow Opaque. And I'm just going to dot that in. And then I think what I'll do is make a little bit of an orange tone. So the Hansa Yellow Opaque and a little bit of the Phthalo Red, or this is Pyrrole Red. Pyrrole Red is just eating up my yellow. And I'll just tap in a couple of these orange spots. If you need to let the yellow dry here, go ahead and do that. just to so that the orange can have an impact and not mess up the yellow that you just put in. And then the last thing I think I'm going to do is I want just a little bit of a pop of pink in there, I think. And it probably is better at this point to let this dry. I'm going to show you since we're here. But for you, if you want to let it dry so that this pink really shows up, it's probably the better plan. Just trying to mix a pink that will show up here. Yeah, I'm gonna have to let it dry, I think. I'll let it dry. It's just a little bit too wet. But you can see just by tapping in, you really have enough detail there. When we come back in and add some of the pink on some of the edges, that will soften some of the yellow just a little bit, but we need to let it dry. I thought I could maybe muscle it in there, but it doesn't want to go. So that is all for this section. The last section that we'll do, the last video that we'll do is just coming back in and adding some of the highlights on the petals. That's when these are really going to start to pop and really start to show their beauty. At this point, I'm going to take this upstairs while I go feed the dogs their lunch. And I'm just going to spend some time looking at it, seeing where I want to come in and make some changes, where I want to maybe soften a leaf a little bit on the edge. But I really, really suggest that you do that. Just to take some time, see it just in your normal environment as you walk past it, see what kind of stands out. What stands out in a good way and what stands out in a bothering way. And then you'll know when you come back to your table to paint again, you'll know some of the areas that you want to focus on. Remember that um, it's we need to we need to follow the process. So don't give up. It's so easy at this stage. And I hope you can see, how unfinished these petals are. Just keep going. Don't give up. You're so close to it here. And the next part is going to be so much fun. To be honest, I really had a lot of fun just with the petals. I really just relaxed. I hope you can see some of the different variations of colors that are coming in here. And I hope that on yours, you will really let that happen. Some of the areas that are a little bit more of a red pink, some of the areas that are a little bit more of a purple pink, and all of those variations are going to be so much fun. If you're painting this at this stage and you're just wondering, am I on the right track? Send me a message, show me a picture, and I'm happy to help. I really think that one of the best things that we can do as artists is to show another artist what we're working on and see what they think. Sometimes we're just so close to it that we can't really evaluate it well ourselves. And I've learned so much over the years in sharing my pieces and just getting a feedback, just a little bit of feedback from a friend. So don't hesitate to do that. Send a picture to a friend. Honestly, just taking a picture of it and looking at the picture yourself will really help too. So I hope you enjoyed this part. Painting the pinks was so much fun. I will see you at the next part where we'll do some of the details.